8 dentists have looked at it, and they told me it looks like a human upper molar, but it's way too big. And here's a scientist we had come down from UC Santa Cruz who made an ass of himself. And, here's the results of Sykes' testing. And most of it, a lot of it, about half of it's from Asia, Yeti hairs. The other is North American. And one of them turned out human. Now, the big deal here is, this woman says that Bigfoot DNA from the X chromosome is human, which is what he got here. But did he check the Y chromosome on this, which she says will be the aberrant part, the unusual part? No, he didn't bother. So I was very angry at him for a while until he wrote the book. Because in the book, see, they did a TV show associated with this, and they said on the TV show he proved that the Yeti is a bear. No, he proved that he didn't have any Yeti samples. That's all you can say is true. You can't say because none of them turned out to be from anything unusual that he's proven the Yeti is a bear. That's what they claim. So in the book he said, well, that's silly. I didn't prove the Yeti is a bear. And he said, he did say that he found a proof of a hairy wild woman that was in Russia in the 1890s that turned out to be from southern Africa and had never migrated out. And her DNA was different from the rest of us.
Wow.
And that's in this book, the family tree of Zena, the ape woman. So he's saying this is real. She's an ape woman. She has different DNA than us. So that's a little point on the side of Bigfoot being plausible. And then in the book he says in no uncertain terms, I started this project as a skeptic. I didn't believe in Yetis or Bigfoot, but I've changed my mind now. And I think they're out there and they're going to be proven soon with DNA. You don't even have to kill them. Just a little vocal swab.
What determines how dangerous they are?
The only thing we can tell from that is anecdotes. And lately I've been looking for scary anecdotes. Because most of the anecdotes indicate that they're just hiding from us. And if you're trying to hide from somebody, you don't go around picking them off. Because once the game's up, when they find out, see. So it wouldn't be a wise practice. So I think for at least 300 years now they've been hiding, and it was to their advantage to leave us alone. Now there may have been a time when, we were game. Because I think if you go back 60 or 80,000 years, all of our ancestors were pretty much animals, and I think they indulged in cannibalism and inbreeding on a regular basis because they didn't know any better.
That one in Russia, do you think that was a Yeti that did that?
No, I think that the Yeti, I believe that the Yeti is an ape, and it may be the current version of Gigantopithecus, the giant ape that's in the fossil record, all the way from Vietnam to India. So we have proof of a giant ape from the Pleistocene, which should be there, because all the mammals during the Pleistocene were like double the size they are now, including apes. They have a skull of a lemur in Madagascar that's also giant. It's from that period. So it all makes sense. This is just 100% makes sense, fits in with biology. There's nothing crazy about it. So then it's a matter of using the anecdotes to try and derive a dossier as to what a Bigfoot's all about. And in the majority of the stories, the Bigfoot looks at you and turns and walks away. But if you're in the deep woods and you're approaching a hideout, because we think they make temporary camps, they have to.
Oh yeah.
If they make permanent, houses, we find them. So they don't make any permanent places. They just have sleeping nests and hunting blinds that they produce from time to time. So you stumble onto one of their campsites, well, they're going to scare you away. And once you run off down the trail, then they're going to go and pick up and move. Because their site has now been compromised. So they just find a new place to hide. And then go until they're discovered again, or the food wears out. And the ones that are out on the prowl, that are seen most often, I'm firmly convinced are teenagers. Adolescent males or young males, not fully developed, not fully grown. And so what do human teenagers do? Stupid things, risk their lives unnecessarily. Don't listen to what their parents tell them. Parents probably tell the teenage Bigfoot, don't let people see you. And I can hear them say, why not? They're afraid of us. You're trying to take away all our fun? Because I think Bigfoot invented reality TV. They've been hiding and watching us. We're their television.
We're someone's
The
television.
entertainment.
So like down in Louisiana and places where they claim they've seen them,
Yeah.
a lot of it's just plain fear from the bayou and that type
Well,
of thing.
Well, yes and no. There's another thing that happens on the Gulf Coast.
Mm-hmm.
See, people will purchase a chimpanzee on the black market,
Yeah.
and they're just darling in diapers. But when they grow to full adult, they can kill you accidentally.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's a person now, they're stuck with an adult chimpanzee, and they've got to get rid of it for fear of their life. So what do? Turn it over to the authorities and pay a $3,000 fine?
No, they let it go.
They let it go in the forest, let it be somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
You let a chimpanzee loose in North America, they're going to head south. Because all the current chimps live on the equator. All the apes live on the equator. So they end up in Florida, most of them, and along the Gulf Coast. And so a lot of the sightings from that part of the world, that are, where they have a glimpse, and they say it was a Bigfoot, it's probably a chimp. There's an example of that on the wall over there. There's a picture of an orangutan that a woman took in her backyard. Her backyard bumps up against the Everglades. And I found out that there was a production company making Tarzan episodes for a TV show back in the 70s. And that was at a time when Bo Derek did a Tarzan movie.
Mm-hmm.
And in that movie, they used orangutans instead of chimps. So the TV show adopted that same attitude. And they moved Tarzan to India for the TV show. And then they didn't have to glue things on the elephant's ears either, like they did in the Johnny Weissmuller movie. Yeah. Indian elephants have smaller ears than African elephants. So when the production company broke down, some of the apes were left in the Everglades.
Yeah.
That explained how a orangutan ended up.
So now they call them skunk apes. And
Skunk apes, yeah. Well, they're known to put out a very, very putrid smell when they're in fight or flight.
mm-hmm.
You know, if they've got to either come and pinch your head or run away, chances are they're going to exude this pheromone.
I just saw this frame on TV less a week ago, and they proved that somewhere this muscle right here that showed through
Well, that's been debunked.
was proven that it's not
No,
human.
It wasn't proven. It was suggested
That it wasn't human.
that it was an indication that the animal was real and not a costume.
Right.
Because why would people build in a hernia on a costume?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem is, let me tell you what happened.
Well, I don't know if they called it a hernia or just an extended muscle of it.
Well, they mentioned the word hernia. I saw it. It was originally shown on a documentary called Legend Meets Science. I have the DVD. I've watched
okay.
it dozens of times.
Okay.
Believe me, they said it was a hernia, or it
Okay.
could be a hernia, or a tear in the iliotibial band
Mm-hmm.
that goes across the thigh. But this man who got a grant to study the film, who has 30 years experience in Hollywood making monster costumes, and he's up to date on current 3D software and so on, just the right man to study the film, and he had no iron in the fire. He wasn't interested in the film, hadn't paid much attention to it. So when he got a grant to study it, he went in and he then published the results of this study. And I mean, this is extensive. And then he attempted, a dozen different ways of making a costume, trying to duplicate what you see here. And he says in the book here, in no uncertain terms, this isn't a costume.
Yeah.
It can't be. And I've proven that in this book. And so now if a scientist wants to say this is a costume, it's incumbent upon him to do that in writing and publish it for peer review and prove that this guy's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this has been a year and a half now since this has been published. So let me tell you what happened. When he was doing a thorough job, so he went and got 3 different copies of the film. The original is lost. We don't know where it went. But there were 8 copies made originally from the film. And they went to different researchers.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy Munns went to 3 different researchers and got their copies of the films. Borrowed them, then scanned them into high definition video. So now, instead of just looking at a frame from the movie, he looks at 3 different versions of that frame.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're dealing with a 16 millimeter film that's then blown up to barn size,
Yeah.
a little speck of dust suddenly looks like something else.
Yes, it does.
It becomes what they call an artifact, and it can affect what you're seeing and fool you. So the hernia only showed up on 1 of the 3.
Hmm.
It was some chemical that had dried up and left a little mark there on the emulsion
Oh, okay.
that gave the appearance of a bulge. So that one was debunked. And that's proof the guy wasn't trying to prove that this,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't care.
Yeah.
So he debunked that bit, but he didn't debunk the costume. He said this